Today, we're going to focus really on two things. We're going to talk about software updates for this past quarter, and then we're going to talk about e-filing, W-2s, and 1099s, and just a very, very high-level agenda for today. Quick introduction overview, that's this. We'll talk software updates, tax table updates, W-2 and 1099 updates, and then probably the thing that most of you are curious about, actually the e-filing process stuff. So we got a lot to cram into our 45 minutes together. And if you have questions along the way, I've got David here with me. He'll be monitoring the chat. And as most of you know, you probably talked to David at some point already, but David has joined the team to help me with all the support stuff, just the volume of things that are coming in. I needed a little bit of help to manage all of it, and David has joined us to help kind of provide support to all of you. So with that said, let's dive into some software updates. And the big thing that you all need to be aware of in terms of software updates is for those of you that are on the Postgres version of Budget Manager, we discovered a bug with 1099s, and you'll want to update your Budget Manager before you print your 1099s. Now, it's not a show-stopping bug, but what will happen if you don't do the update first is when you go to print your 1099 forms, it's going to print a 1099 for every single vendor in your system, whether or not they actually have a amount that needs to be reported or not. The bug was not honoring the cutoff amount that you all set up, the $600 cutoff amount. And again, it's not the end of the world. You end up using a lot of extra paper that you don't need to use. So make sure that your budget manager is updated. It's version 8.30. And for those of you that are still using the older CISM version, that bug is not there. So there's no update to the older version of Budget Manager because that version did not have that particular bug. So that's thing number one. Make sure you update Budget Manager to version 8.30, and then you don't end up wasting a lot of paper when you go to actually print your 1099 forms. Second, in terms of updates, the big thing is really your tax tables. There were some changes to the federal tax rates. The amounts have changed a little bit, and you want to make sure that you update those tax tables. And again, it's not the end of the world if you don't do it, but you should get it done before you run your January payroll. That should kind of be your cutoff date is before January payroll is done, update your tax tables. And I'll show you quickly here in just a second how you can do that for both versions. It's a pretty straightforward process, but the main thing is you have to download the new tax table files, and then you need to either import it into the system if you're on Postgres, and if you're on the old version, you just drag and drop the new tax table file to your payroll folder. So let me demonstrate that very, very quickly, and I'll show you in the Postgres version. This assumes that you've downloaded the file from our share file server. Once you've done that, you're going to go to Other Functions. You'll go to Manage Database, and then you're going to say Import Data. And when you do this, you don't need to do everything. So you're going to unselect all the stuff, and then you just say check the tax tables box here. Once you've done that, the easiest way to select the file is this little file selector button. You'll click on that, and then it's going to ask you to navigate to wherever you've saved the tax table file, which it's 2025 01-taxtable.csv. You select the file, and then you press Open, and that'll display the file here. And then you just press the import button. It literally takes like no time at all. It'll say import complete, and that's your cue that it's done. And the best way that you can check to make sure that it was successful is to go to Paychecks. And when the date selector tool pops up, you just want to make a note of the tax table date at the top of the window here. And it should say January of 2025. So that's the litmus test for making sure that you've updated correctly. I see a couple of questions. Let's see. Any problem with W-2s if we upload the tax table prior to printing them? No, not at all, Amy. It won't impact historical paychecks. It's only for future paychecks, if that makes sense. So good question. Let's see. Cindy, you have version 8.27. So Cindy, that's actually a couple of versions behind. You may not actually have that bug. I would still encourage you to do the update or have your tech person do the update prior to the 1099s. But it only popped up in 8.29 is where we noticed the bug. So you actually might be okay because you're a couple versions behind. But the way that you can double check is just do a quick print to screen or trial run. You'll notice real quick if you have the bug or not. It's the difference of printing like 10 1099s or 150 for all your vendors. Good questions there. Okay, super. Let's talk about the CISM version. It's a little less steps in terms of what you need to do, but what you'll functionally do is you'll download taxtable.dat file, and then you are going to drag and drop that into your payroll folder. No other steps. That's the only thing that you need to do, and you'll check it exactly the same way as everyone else. Open payroll, click on paychecks, make sure that date at the top of the tax table says January of 2025. If it does, you're good to go. So again, the litmus test is make sure you do it before you run your January payroll. It's not the end of the world if you forget or don't do it. Just you don't want to go too much time because obviously the tax implications will grow exponentially if you forget to do it over time. So kind of make a note for yourself to check that before you run your January payroll. One other important change that I'll mention is that the FICA base wage limit has been updated. And what that functionally means is that you need to modify your FICA benefit code. And this will work for everyone. You'll go to other functions and then you'll select your benefit codes. And then you need to select your employer FICA benefit. You'll notice that this is the old amount, $168,600. The new amount is $176,100. So you'll select the FICA benefit, just edit it, change it to the new amount, and then save the benefit here, and you're good to go. So those are the main changes that you'll want to make sure that you've taken a few minutes to get those things updated. So, and we will, again, in the email that we send with the recording, we will make sure to do that. Joey, it's $176,100. Yeah, and again, we'll include it in the email because it's an odd number and I don't expect everybody to remember it. But anyway, so those are your two big changes that you want to do before your January payroll. In terms of W-2s and 1099s, we'll shift to some changes there. For W-2s, no major updates, no major changes. The forms look the same. They're identical in every way, shape, and form to the previous tax year. So there's nothing extra that you really need to be thinking about or doing for W-2s. Additionally, 1099s, the forms are virtually identical, no major changes from the IRS, nothing that we needed to modify or adjust in terms of the placement of boxes and all of that stuff. However, on the budget manager side of things, we did make a couple of changes to the 1099 types. And really, it has to do with just providing a little bit of clarity to help everyone know which type of 1099 should they select when you're setting up a vendor. So you've probably already seen this because it's actually been present in the program for a couple of months now, but we're calling it out because you should probably review your 1099 types prior to printing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up a fake vendor and we'll look at these types here. And again, not much has changed except for providing a little bit of clarity as to which form and which box it's going to print in and when you should probably use those things. Probably 90% of the time, you're going to use a 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation, for most of your vendors. With that said, you have rents paid, which is when you are paying rents to someone. There's attorney settlements. You'll use that option when you're paying for legal services that are not in the regular course of business, like a third-party insurance settlement or something like that. If you're paying for an attorney, compensating them, you choose this attorney comp option. So that is one point of clarity that we've introduced, is making sure that it's real clear as to the difference between an attorney settlement and an attorney compensation. Royalties paid, medical payments, and other income are fairly self-explanatory, but the point of clarity there is really around the specific attorney options that are available to you. Um, so that's one change that has been made to hopefully provide a little bit of clarity, make it a little easier to know which thing you should be selecting when you're setting up your vendors. And one of the steps when it comes to printing your 1099s that we're really recommending is review your vendors who are receiving 1099s and make sure that they have the appropriate type. And there's a really easy way for you to do this. And I'll go ahead and show you now. So on the vendor screen, if you go to print and then you go to reports, and it's popping up behind something, so I can't see it now. Let's see. Sorry, I have multiple monitors open and it's on one of them. I'm about to close everything. There we go. And what you do when you get to this print report screen is first change the report type to an amounts list. And then second, check this box that says with 1099s only. And what this is going to do, I'll just print it to screen so you can see an example, is it's just going to give you a list of all of your vendors who are going to receive a 1099. And the important part is it's going to show you what type you've selected. And it gives you an opportunity just to quickly review who's getting a 1099, how much money did you pay them, is the tax ID correct? Is the 1099 type correct? Highly encourage everyone to take a quick gander at that report prior to printing your actual forms there. It's a really, really handy report for just double checking everything. And that way you're not wasting paper trying to look at everything. Okay, cool. I've covered a lot of ground pretty quickly in terms of some of the changes and updates. Pause for just 2 seconds to make sure there's nothing in chat that we've missed. Yeah, and Casey David's correct. It won't affect anything with that amount being changed or not changed, typically, unless someone's actually making that amount of money. Okay, super. Let me talk about one other big change that will be particularly helpful if you have to issue corrections for your 1099s or your W-2s. And again, this is something that's been a part of the program for a couple of months now. We built it out a while ago, but I want to specifically show you how it works and how you can quickly do corrections to individual vendors or an individual employee should they need a correction made to one of their forms. And I have to call out, this is only available to the Postgres version. This is not something that got built with backwards compatibility for the old version for a number of reasons that are technical in nature. It just wasn't possible to put it in. So having said that, I will plug once again, if you're on the old CISM version and you have some time to spend with me and or David, we've done 5 or 6 successful conversions over the last few months, and it's pretty painless. It usually takes somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes, and we usually have things up and running. Probably don't do it during the midst of tax season, but come February, I would love to spend some time with you to help you get updated if you're still running the old system, and then you can take advantage of some of these nice new features. So let's talk about making corrections. Before we built this extra little module, you kind of had to go in and make changes via, the actual like vendor or go to an employee and edit paycheck history. You don't have to do that anymore, which is really, really nice. So we'll start with the 1099s. You'll go to reports and you'll notice you have vendor 1099 corrections. And when you pull this up, what's going to happen is, again, I just have a bunch of fake data here, so it's not particularly useful. But on the left side of the screen, you'll have a list of all of your vendors, and you'll select the vendor that needs a correction. And in my case, I've just got myself here. And then you just edit the reported information. So, for instance, in this example, I reported 10,000 originally, but it needed to be 15,000. You just change the amount, you press save, and from here, you print the corrected 1099 form right from this module. Consequently, you can also do a 1099 correction file for electronic reporting as well. Really, really handy, and it's a lot quicker than having to kind of finagle with the underlying data. It allows you just to quickly fix a mistake. Now, if it's a big mistake, I should call this out. If it's a big mistake, you should probably take the time to fix it with your data. But this is for those types of things where the TIN or EIN number needs to be corrected, the name needs to be updated, maybe the type needs to be modified. But that'll allow you to quickly make those changes. Similarly, the W-2 correction module works 100% the same way. I'll pull up Payroll Manager here, and you go to Reports, and you go to W-2C or W-3C forms, C standing for corrections, of course, and same type of thing. You'll have a list of all your employees on the left side of the screen. You'll select whoever you need to modify here, and I will just add myself. And you can now see the previously reported information, and then you can modify anything that's on the screen here to have correct information. And same thing, once you've made the modifications, you save it, and then you print the corrected forms from the print menu. And you can also create a electronic file for electronic reporting. So a really, really handy tool that'll allow you to quickly fix any mistakes that might pop up along the way for your W-2s or your 1099s. It's a pretty cool little module. Any questions about corrections? Hopefully you don't even have to deal with corrections, but if you do, it's there for you and you can take advantage of it. All right. Well, let's jump over to e-filing, which is probably the thing that most of you are most interested in. So before we dive too deep into the process here, there's a couple of things that I'll be able to show you live directly on the websites. There's a couple of things that I can't show you because the IRS has the systems closed at the moment. And then there's a couple of things I can't show you because I would be exposing things like my social security number to all 30 of you, and I'd prefer not to do that. Although I trust you all inherently, and I don't expect any bad things to happen. But this recording is going to be on the internet, so I'm going to try to avoid leaking my personal info as much as I possibly can. But I'm also going to show you as much as I can without completely doxing myself. So with that said, we'll turn our attention to the registration process. Now, hopefully you've at least started this process in some form or fashion back in December when we kind of flagged it as a thing that should be done. But if you haven't, you're probably fine. Based on what we've been seeing with folks, we've helped some folks over the phone. We've actually done a few Zoom calls to walk people through the process. Based on what we're seeing, the Social Security Administration is issuing the necessary codes usually within a couple of days. The slowdown for them is the fact that they only send it via the mail. So you just kind of have to wait for the letter to show up with the code inside of it. But from what we've been hearing, it's usually within a week. The code shows up in your mailbox, which is pretty nice. The IRS is actually faster than the Social Security Administration in that you don't even have to wait for a letter in the mail. It just shows up on the application that you submit once that they accept it. So, and what we've been seeing is 2 to 3 business days for the IRS TCC code. So having said that, the deadline for submission for these things is January 31st. You've still got several full weeks of time to get through all of these processes, but I would highly, highly encourage you, if you haven't started, by the end of this week, you really want to get those things filled out and submitted. Otherwise, you will run the risk of not having what you need by the January 31st deadline. One thing I'll also mention is the 1095 forms. We're not talking about those yet, namely because their deadline is in March, and so you don't really need to be thinking about those just yet. But we will share some information as we get a little closer to you needing to actually print those and distribute them to employees. So we'll focus just on 1099s and W-2s for today. Okay, let me pull up a couple of websites here, and we'll start with the W-2s and the Social Security Administration, namely because their system and platform is 10 times easier to work with than the IRS. So if you haven't already begun this process, you're going to go to ssa.gov/BSO. BSO standing for Business Services Online. And what you're going to do is scroll down to this employer section here, and you need to create an account. Now, what I would encourage all of you to do, if you don't have an ID.me account, create one. And the reason being is, as we were looking through some of the federal government documentation, from what we can tell, the federal government is basically putting all of their services behind an ID.me login. Now, it's not complete. That work is still seemingly ongoing, but they issued a notice back in 2022 or so, where eventually all of the federal government services will be behind an ID.me login. So if you don't have one, that would definitely be the route to go, because it'll also make it probably a little easier to gain access to other tools if you would need them in the future. So when you create an account, and I can't show you that because I already have an ID.me and it doesn't let me walk through the process, but you'll click on create an account and then you pick the option that you want to create. They have 3 different choices. I would encourage you to do ID.me because it makes it easier to log into some of their other systems. They have another one called login.gov, and I believe I've talked to a couple of folks that have those accounts. The challenge is that for some reason, the login.gov works for the Social Security Administration, but the IRS doesn't use that. Why? I have no clue, but that's the federal government for you. So step 1, create an account, create an ID.me account. And just to let you all know, if you don't have an ID.me or you haven't gone through the process, it is going to ask you a ton of questions. It's going to feel a little invasive as they ask you to do certain things. Namely, they'll have you take a picture of your driver's license. They'll have you take a selfie with your phone. And I get it. We know it feels a little awkward to be doing those things. But number one, it's perfectly safe. And it's the thing that's going to make your life a little easier as you gain access to some of these online tools. So you'll go ahead and register for the account. When you get to the end of the registration, you're going to be presented with a screen that issues a BSO user ID, a Business Services Online user ID. And I'm going to pull up our help doc that shows this just so you can see what it's going to look like. And this is the screen that you'll see is congratulations, a new user ID has been created for you. Print this page out and keep this because you're going to need this user ID. The good news is if you don't print it, you can find it on the Social Security website, just kind of a pain. So I would encourage you print this page out because you'll need to reference this user ID as you work with their systems. So once you click next, it's actually going to give you access to the business services. And this is the point where you now have to wait for the code to come in. And again, I can't demonstrate this because I already have a code and I already have access to all of the tools. So I just kind of have to rely on a few screenshots of what it looks like. But after you click that next button, it's going to take you to this screen here where you're actually in the business services tool, right? And this is the point where you now have to say, I want to request access to the W-2 reporting module. And when you get here, you say request new services, and you walk through this process of telling them what you want to do. And it's a pretty straightforward process. And again, I can't demonstrate it because I've already gone through it myself, and it doesn't let me do it a second time. But effectively, it's a step-by-step set of screens where it says, okay, what do you want to report? And you click next, and then it asks you to add your employer information, which is just all of the school's info. And you just walk through all of these screens, fill out the EIN number, confirm that you're actually a representative of the school. And then again, the one thing that I'll mention here is they have this service that they call Social Security Number Verification Service. You do not need that. As a matter of fact, if you opt to do that, which I don't know why you would or what you would need it for, they have a note here that it is a more rigorous verification process, and it can take a little longer for you to get access to the things that you need. So unless you absolutely feel like you would need to verify Social Security numbers for some reason, make sure you say no to this particular service. You don't need it. I can't think of a reason that you would need to verify people's numbers. Um, and keep in mind, if you say yes to this question, it will take a little extra time, and that you probably don't want to do that being the first full week of January right now. So you'll go through this step-by-step process, fill out all of the information, and when you get to the end, it'll just show you a quick review. You'll press confirm, and then you wait. And effectively what they do is they send a letter to the school, and it says, so and so has requested access to the business services online, and the reason they send it to the employer, of course, is to prevent any kind of fraud. Once you have those codes, you come right back to the Social Security Business Services website, and there's a big link that says enter activation codes. You click that link, you type in the code that they've sent to you, and you press confirm, and you're now ready to report your wages to the Social Security Administration. So this is the easiest registration out of all the different entities that we've worked with, because it's very straightforward. It's a step-by-step process, and everything that they put on the screen is fairly self-explanatory. So that's the SSA, and that's for W-2s. And like I said, if you haven't done this yet, if you did it today, you'd probably have your code sometime, in the middle of next week, just based on how things have been going and what folks have been saying as we've helped them with this. And many of you, I believe, I've heard from a few of you that you already have the code, so you're good to go. So the next thing, of course, would just be make sure you log back into the BSO, enter your activation codes, and then you'll see you have a whole slew of tools at your disposal that I'll show you here once we talk about 1099 registration. Yeah, and Casey, it's okay to use both. There's really no problem there. My thinking is if you don't have either of those things, opt for the ID.me, because that seems to be the direction that the Fed is going. If you have both, it's totally fine. Either way works. Yeah, it's not a problem. My thinking is it's kind of an extra login that you have to keep track of, and if you can minimize the number of usernames and passwords you have to have, that's always a good thing. So, yeah, but there's no problem having both. All right, well, let's talk about the IRS. Unlike the Social Security Administration, the IRS, which is where you report your 1099s, is a whole different beast and is a much more cumbersome process. So there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of when it comes to the IRS registration process. And a few of these are really, really key to ensuring that you're going to be able to report by the deadline. Number one, the IRS has multiple electronic filing systems that are available to you. You need to make sure that you choose the correct one. The correct system is the FIRE system, which is Filing Information Returns Electronically. They have a system called IRIS, which also allows you to file things electronically. You don't want that. And the reason being is our electronic file format is specifically designed for the FIRE system, which is the system that has kind of been in place for a number of years. Our understanding is that eventually everything will transition to IRIS eventually, but you need to submit an application specifically for the FIRE system. If you do any other application for any of their other tools, I cannot guarantee that you're actually going to be able to submit the 1099s. So keep that in mind. It is really, really important that you pay close attention to the application that you're submitting, and it must be the FIRE system. That is the system that you want access to. The other thing that I'll mention is you'll notice down here they have this notice FIRE system availability. The actual reporting tool at the moment does not seem like it's going to open up until January 13th. That is the federal government's projected estimate for when you'll actually be able to log into this system and actually upload the files. The good news is you can still submit the application now if you haven't already. So you'll go to this thing called the IR application for TCC, and you got to love all these acronyms. And when you get here, it's probably going to make me log in, and I will do that off screen so I don't reveal any personal information. Give me just a second, and I can show you what this looks like. Okay. I'm logging in, and obviously I've already got I2M as an organization, but if this is your first time logging in, you're probably not going to see anything on this screen except for this button that says individual. And in typical federal government fashion, this makes no sense whatsoever, but this is the button that you need to click. And I know it says no organization authorizations are granted, but it's not true. You have to click this button. So ignore the warning there, click the button, and it's going to get you to the place that you need to be in order to actually fill out the application. So you'll click individual, and when it loads, you have the option for a brand new application. And this is what I was mentioning about it being really important that you apply for the correct thing. Some of these things, I have no idea what they do, what they're for, how you use them, and you need to apply for the fire system. And it can be a little confusing because the wording's very similar, especially if you're looking at the IRS system. So be very, very mindful of filling out the correct thing. And if you've got an application for the wrong thing, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. You just need to create a brand new application specifically for the fire system. You can have applications for literally every single one of these tools. That the federal government doesn't care if you've done that. But for our purposes and submitting your 1099s, it's the fire system. So just be keenly aware of that. And you're going to click on this, and this is the part that's pretty straightforward, but it's a lot. It's going to make you fill out all of your business information. And again, I can't fill this out because I2M already has one, but I'll show you what a completed application looks like. But it's a step-by-step thing. You're going to walk through all of these steps, fill out all the information, continue to the next step, fill out the information. I would say that once you get to the application, this is pretty straightforward. The only part that can be a little confusing here is the fact that you have to have multiple authorized users. And you need to have a minimum of 2. You can have up to like 30 or something for some odd reason, but you must have at least 2 names on the application. And what the IRS requires is you have to have 2 responsible individuals, which one of those is going to be you as the business manager. The second can be anybody that you choose. For a lot of folks, you may have like a clerk or a secretary that's going to be your second responsible individual, or you may have a different setup for your particular school. But you need to add that second responsible individual. And it's important it's somebody that you can rely on, because part of this process is they have to come in and sign the application themselves in order for this to be complete. So the other thing that you have to have are 2 contacts. Now, the nice thing is the responsible individual and the contact can be the same people. So you only need 2 individuals for this process. And let me just show you what that page looks like. And I can only show you a screenshot of the application piece, but when you get to adding your responsible individuals, and this is probably a little small on your screens here, but you enter all of the information: first name, last name, social, date of birth, their position or title. There's this small checkbox that says add this person as a contact. Check that box and then press save. What that'll do is it'll add you as the responsible individual and the contact. You'll do that a second time, it'll add responsible individual and a contact. That's all you need in terms of adding contacts. Angela says, oh, that's not a dumb question. For a business structure, if you're a charter school, what would be on the application? What do you mean in terms of like the responsible individuals, or just in general? If it's easier to unmute yourself, and in general, it's just going to be your charter school information, right? So It doesn't functionally matter whether you're a charter school, a public school, or some other type of entity, nonprofit. Um, the process for adding this information is 100% identical. Um, yeah, there's really no difference. Yeah, great question. That was not a dumb question at all. Because functionally, what you're doing here is you're basically saying, I am a representative of such and such entity, whatever it is, and I'm going to be submitting 1099 information on behalf of the entity that I work for. That's really what's going on here. They just make it very, very convoluted in order to get there. So, um, let me jump back to the actual application. I'm going to move this off the screen for 2 seconds so that I don't accidentally reveal anybody's personal info. But I think I can do this here. Sorry, I just don't want to accidentally reveal anybody's social because there's multiple people on our application here. So um, after you add your authorized users, there is a section to add comments, and I can show you that. Why you would need to do this is probably not super clear to me, but if you feel the need to add a comment to the IRS, this is your opportunity to do it. You press add, you add the comment. From there, once you've created any comments, which you don't really need to do this is completely optional. You can see an example of why you would add a comment. We needed to edit a user on our application. That would be a reason to add a comment. For most of you, you don't need to do this. Once you've done this, you'll get presented with an application summary, which I can't show you that because it's got all of our personal information on it, and I don't think everybody would appreciate sharing that. And then finally, you get to this end piece, which is the application submission. When you get to this screen, there's two things that you have to do. Number one, there's a box that you have to check to agree to the terms of service. And number two, it's going to ask you for a PIN number. And I didn't mention this, but when you log in to create the application, the IRS is going to have you create a 5-digit PIN number. Any 5 digits, it doesn't matter what it is, just make sure that you can remember it and you write it down somewhere. The signing of the application is entering your PIN number. So you'll type in the PIN number, you'll check the agree to terms of service, and then you press submit. Right? So that's your part as the business manager. It's done. Or whoever is actually filling out this application. There is a second piece to all of this that is vitally important that you do, and that is your second responsible individual must log in to the IRS application and sign the application that you've put forth here. So what does that mean for that second person? If they don't have id.me or login.gov, they'll create one. They will sign in, and what they will see is a little different than what you've seen. They do not have to fill out the forms again. They do not have to enter a bunch of information again. All they have to do is, let me see if I can jump back here. When they log in, they will see the pending application. All they need to do is just view it, which is this little eyeball icon. They click view, it'll give them an opportunity to create a PIN number, and then it'll give them the opportunity to review all the data, and then they will have to sign the application with their created PIN number and the I agree to terms of service. That is the thing that triggers the IRS to generate a TCC code for you. If you do not do that, you will not get your TCC. So make sure that that second person is someone that can get into the system and do that with you. Now, that's the registration process for the IRS. Like I said, way more convoluted and complicated than the SSA for whatever reason. Once you have submitted the application from both parties, the IRS will actually display the TCC code directly inside of the application. So you as the business manager or the primary registrant, you can log into the system, click the little eyeball icon, and they will show you the status of your application. What you want to see if you've recently submitted or are going to submit, you want it to say pending. That is a very important component. And then eventually it'll switch to completed. You can open up the application here and it will display the TCC code directly on the website. And again, I don't want to show that to you, but uh, do we not submit W-2s to the IRS? No, you don't. Isn't that awesome? W-2s go to the Social Security Administration, 1099s go to the IRS. You can ask why, but I don't know. That's a good question, Amy. It's not intuitive at all. But by submitting to the SSA, that takes care of the federal level process completely. Yeah, super odd. The other thing about the 1099 IRS side of things is they will mail you a copy of the code in the mail. So that I think is taking a week or so based on what we've heard. So yes, yeah, the IRS does want to know everything. Yeah, good question, Jamie. We're going to talk about TAP here in just a second. And I know we're getting close on time. I am actually good to go a little long. I know many of you are busy. If you have things to do, you're not going to hurt our feelings if you have to jump out. You will get the recording once this is all done. So let's jump to TAP real quick, and then I'll do a quick demonstration of uploading. So most of you are probably already going to have a TAP account, so I'm really not going to cover the registration process in any depth at all. If you need help with it, of course, let us know. But if you don't have a TAP account, go create one. It is the simplest process out of the three that we're describing here. So go to the Idaho TAP website and create the account. If you already have an account, you already have access to everything you need, which is fantastic. There's no extra request. There's no codes involved. You just need to have the account and have it active, which depending on how you create the account, you could get access immediately because there's like a little quiz that they make you take. You answer a bunch of questions about yourself, and then if you answer them correctly, they issue an account and you have full access to everything. Or you could do the old-fashioned way, which is wait for a mail, a thing in the mail. So, but if you already have the account, you're actually good to go. I can't actually log into TAP at the moment. I was having problems earlier this morning, and I haven't figured out why just yet. But what you effectively do is you log into the TAP website. There's a button that says More, and then when you click on More, it takes you to another page. There's a big square that basically says you want to report wages, and you have two choices. You can report a W-2 file, and you can report a 1099 file. You click that link, you upload the file, and you're done. It is by far the easiest out of all of these processes. Matter of fact, we've documented all of the TAP process in our help articles here. So, but it is significantly easier, Jamie. Yeah, and if you already have the account, you already have access to the tool. So, oh, Jennifer, good question. Issuer or transmitter? So the key to that question is, are you submitting multiple organizations information, or are you just going to submit for one, right? So the issuer is if you're a single organization, which Jennifer, I believe you're probably just with the one charter school, that's probably you. If you want to submit 1099s for multiple schools or organizations, you want to be a transmitter. So Jamie, you'd be a great example of a transmitter for the IRS application because you'll likely submit for two schools. So that's the key delineation there, Jennifer, is issuer for a single organization, transmitter for multiple organizations. So really good questions. Yeah, Joey, good triple check on that. Yeah, David answered in the chat, but yes, 1099s with the IRS, W-2s with the SSA, and then both with TAP. Yeah, super interesting. Doesn't make any sense, but that is the federal government for you. Okay, I'm going to log into my BSO account really quickly, and I'll show you the process for uploading the files. And again, I'm doing this off the share screen for the second so I can get all my personal information not into a recording here. A couple of things that you should probably make a note of while I'm getting logged in. In terms of the order that you should submit things, we have some very specific instructions regarding the destination for some of these files. So if you're doing W-2s, you want to do the federal level first. And the reason being is the Social Security Administration has a tool that will let you check and review your W-2 file for errors or mistakes, uh, which is really, really handy because you can correct them before officially submitting. Uh, the reverse is true for your 1099s. You want to submit your 1099s to TAP first because TAP has a tool to check your 1099s, whereas the federal government doesn't. So again, we've got this noted in all of our documentation, but you want to do W-2s at the federal level first because that'll give you access to the tool to check everything. And you want to do 1099s at the state level first because they have a tool to check your 1099s. Okay, so I am logging into the BSO here, and hopefully you can see this. Don't steal my user ID. Okay, so when you get into the business services online and you've entered your codes, you'll have a single link on this screen, which is report wages of Social Security. You click on this link, and then of course they give you a big scary warning, you accept, and then you get to the spot where you can actually report your W-2 file. So a couple of things here. This AccuWage Online, this is the tool that I was talking about that allows you to test the file first. So you go to the AccuWage Online, and then you can walk through the submission. And it's really important to note, if you do AccuWage, this does not officially submit the data to the federal government. This is just a tool to check that everything is accurate. So what you would do here is you would say start testing. I don't have a file to actually show you how this works, but you just walk through the on-screen prompts there. After you've tested your file, it'll tell you if there's any errors. It makes it very, very easy to understand why there's errors, and it makes it easy to go correct. It's usually things like an address or a missing zip code or small things like that, are the typical types of errors that you might see, missing Social Security number. So that'll allow you to test your file. After you've tested, presumably there's no errors or you fix the errors, you'll go back to this main wage reporting screen. And really all you want to do is upload a wage file. And this is the file that gets generated by Payroll Manager, is that file there. So you upload the file, you say submit a formatted wage file. And once again, it's just going to give you this really handy kind of walkthrough wizard that says, just pick all the options. So you're going to do a W-2 file, and then it's going to say upload your file. Once you upload your file, you just keep clicking continue until it's actually submitted. When you submit it, this is important, when you submit it, print the confirmation page for your records. This is the thing that you will be able to provide the IRS that shows them that you completed the process and actually submitted the files. That way, if they ever come back to you and they want to know what happened, or they say that they don't have data, you have a printed confirmation that you can send to them that shows that you actually submitted things correctly. So that is really, really key. But so make sure you print it for your records. But that's the process for submitting the files. And once again, that's inside of, I'll go back. You get into the business services online, you click report wages, and then you say upload formatted wage file, and then you say submit the formatted wage file. And then you just walk through the step-by-step process here. So that's how you get those submitted. And again, I can't demonstrate the IRS side of things because FIRE is still down. But when FIRE does come up next Monday, presumably, we're planning on doing a quick recording that we'll make sure is available to everybody to walk you through the process, just like we did for the Social Security Administration. And then again, TAP is very, very straightforward. You log into your TAP account, there's a button that says more. When you click on more, it'll take you to another page, and there's a box that literally says submit W-2 file or submit 1099 file. You click that, and it actually almost looks identical to this screen here. You walk through the process. So, and I would demonstrate that, but I'm having problems with my TAP account for some reason. All right, I know we're a little bit over time, but I want to give you a chance to ask any clarifying questions, things that are still hazy or murky about the process. We know it's a lot. The other thing I'll mention is David and I have jumped on the phone with folks that are walking through the process. We've done scheduled like Zoom screen share sessions. If that's helpful to you, more than happy to spend some time with you to get through that process. That's been helpful to some folks. Whatever you need to get through the process, super happy to help any way that we can. Yes, it absolutely is, Amy. Yep. 1099 file check is under the More tab. It's actually built into the submission process, which is fascinating and very, very cool and very, very helpful. Your typical 1099 problems, again, it's like missing addresses, missing zip codes, EIN numbers missing, something like that, where it basically says, hey, there's a problem here. It's just really annoying that you don't have checks at both levels for both sets of files. And it's really odd that W-2s are at the federal, 1099s at the state. But it'll save you a lot of grief if you do it that way. Cool. Well, yeah. Oh, one more quick questions. Candy interrupted, so I missed the transmitter item. I work for multiple schools. I am currently an issue. Should I be a transmitter? Yes, you probably want to do a transmitter. It's not the end of the world, Candy, if you don't. What it means, though, is that you will have to set yourself up as an issuer for all the schools that you work for. It's totally fine. The IRS doesn't care if you do it that way. We just recommend be a transmitter because you only have to fill out the application one time. Yeah, so that's the difference. Let's see, one more quick question. Two people as contacts. Do we need two contacts and one responsible official? So it's two ROs, responsible officials, and two contacts. And it can be the exact same people, right? So responsible official number one can also be contact number one. Responsible official number two can also be contact number two, right? But it has to be two human beings minimum, and they can both be the thing. They can both be the contact and the responsible official. Great questions. And something I'll call out since we have so many people here. Obviously, one of the challenges we had with me working, I was only working like 8 to 3. David is now covering the hours from 3 to 5 p.m. So if you're working late, David will be around up until 5 p.m. Mountain Time to take calls and emails. So we've extended our support hours. Well, it's actually permanent. It's not just for tax season, but so you are permanently able to access someone between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. now. If you didn't already see that in we sent an email a couple weeks ago, but figured I'd mention it here. Okay, super. Well, I'll go ahead and wrap it up if I don't see any other questions coming in through the chat. I'm going to hang out for just a couple more minutes if anybody has any additional questions, but with that, we'll officially end the webinar. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. Hope you got some rest and relaxation over that break. And if there's any way that we can help you with this stuff or, general business manager things that you have going on, reach out, phone, email, whatever you need. We are super happy to help you all. And I hope you all have a great rest of the week. Thanks for stopping in, everyone.